Emotional intelligence is the ability to identify and manage your emotions and the emotions of others. Social skills are part of EQ, or emotional intelligence. Utilizing your social skills plays a huge part in connecting with people. We are social beings by nature. If you form strong relationships with people, you increase your chances of living a fulfilled life. Scientist, journalist, author, and psychologist Daniel Goleman popularized the concept of emotional intelligence, EQ, in 1995 in his book, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence theory outlines 5 components of EQ. This is self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Hi, this is Clarity Coach Lucy, and this is Tuesday Talks at 3. Welcome to the EQ and Me series, episode number 5. In our last episode, we looked at the 3 types of empathy that psychologists have defined. There was cognitive, emotional, and compassionate. Now, these 3 types of empathy move in progression from cognitive to emotional to compassionate. And in summary, cognitive is simply knowing how the other person feels and what they might be thinking. So this is your mind taking stock of what you're seeing, what you're witnessing. It's an intellectual response, sometimes called perspective taking. Now, empathy or emotional empathy, on the other hand, is when you feel physically along with the other person as though their emotions were contagious. Now, this could be perhaps you're watching somebody who is ecstatically happy, jumping up and down, and suddenly you start to get happy hormones. This is you getting these emotions that are contagious. Or you could be watching a very sad scene unfolding before you, and your eyes well up and you get tears in your eyes and they just run down your cheeks. This could be the emotions being contagious. You are feeling physically along with the other person. Then there's compassionate empathy. Now, with this kind of empathy, you not only register what is happening, that's cognitive, you go ahead and you emotionally connect. So you're not only registering, you're not only emotionally connecting, but then you get this spontaneous feeling, a movement in your body where you want to help. There's this feeling that you cannot stop yourself. You want to reach out and do something about the situation. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are taking on the situation of feeling, taking away the burden from this person and how they're feeling. All you're doing is connecting with them. You're registering what you're seeing. You're connecting with what you're seeing and what you're feeling. And then you're going ahead and doing something about it. That is compassionate empathy. Now, in this episode, we seek to understand how to influence effectively, how to influence effectively through social skills. And we continue to borrow from Daniel Goleman's theory of emotional intelligence. Today's question is, how well do you connect with strangers? How well do you connect with strangers? And I'm just going to check and see that indeed we are live. Like we say today, we are all about influencing effectively through social skills. And I do hope that you have signed up with me and ready to answer the question of the day, which is how well do you connect with strangers? And yes, we are live. We've been live for the last 3 minutes. Fantastic. Good afternoon to you, Nancy. Great to have you here. As we say today, we're talking about social skills and how to influence effectively. Last episode was fantastic, where we're talking about the 3 types of empathy. And we're going to be tying this in with social skills as we come to the end of the EQ and Me series this month. We've had 5 sessions so far, including this one. So social skills are the emotional intelligence skills that we have. This is where we properly manage one's or other person's emotions so that we can connect and interact and work with others. So social skills are important. And when you go out into the corporate world, social skills, we get a lot of them. There's communication, there's etiquette, there's where we're going with listening skills. Well, we're talking about empathy, different kind of social skills that can be applied, because these are emotional intelligence skills that we need. Unfortunately, most of these social skills are not taught in the formal learning. This is something we learn out and about in the world, or perhaps we learn at home. So the question is, how well do you connect with strangers? Growing up, I'm very sure your parents said to you, do not speak to strangers, do not trust strangers. But now you are an adult and you are in a situation where you're always meeting strangers. We call it networking. So how well do you connect with strangers? Put yourself in a room where there are people you've never met, but you know that this group of people belong to your same industry or to an industry that is complementary to what it is that you do. How do you connect with them? This is where social skills come in. Hello, Lillian. Glad to see you here. Karibu sana. Now, in the previous episodes, we have discussed how to take back control of our emotions. We agreed that we are emotional beings. Yes, we are social beings, but we are emotional beings. When something happens to you, the first thing that comes to mind is the emotion. Before you having this cognitive realization or full realization of what you're going through, there's an emotion that comes with it. It could be fear, it could be anxiety, it could be happiness, it could be ecstasy, whatever it is, it hits you first. And that's the one you have to deal with first before the cognitive sets in and you begin to understand what you're going through. So at times you're told, don't think with your heart, think with your head. This is somebody now trying to draw a difference between the cognitive and the emotions. So when we were looking at taking back control, we considered the internal and the external. What is it that we have on the internal? How prepared we are for the external? Empathy, which we did in our last episode, would be one thing that we pour out from the inside. And we did agree that for you to be able to show empathy, you need to know how to show yourself empathy first. So self-empathy was important. So let us just talk about the connection of your emotions and how you can take back control. Now, a perfect example is about knowing what emotion you are feeling. Take a moment now and register the emotion that you are feeling. And in our first episode of self-awareness, I remember saying to you that you need to journal down your emotions. This is when you realize you've got a whole myriad or plethora of emotions that you go through out the day, that you go throughout the day. You find that from one instance to the other, you are moving from one emotion to the other. And at times you wonder why you're so exhausted at the end of the day, yet you didn't do any physical work where your mind was alert. You were going through all these emotions and you were having to deal with them. Now, imagine the emotions that you're going through, and maybe here and now you're going through an emotion. Maria and Jerry, welcome. Welcome. Today we are on social skills. We're just doing a small wrap up of empathy of last week and trying to draw it into today. We want to see how well we connect with strangers. So if you are going through an emotion right now, and then you choose to feel a different emotion in that instant, that is you taking control of your emotions. It is an easy thing to do when you work this muscle. You need to do this for a long period of time, and then it becomes second nature. So how many times have you experienced this? Maybe you could share this with me on the chat. How many times have you experienced feeling one emotion, but choosing to feel a different emotion in that moment? And to help you along, I want you to imagine taking back control. I want you to imagine a specific emotion has overtaken you in this instant. Yet this is not the right time for you to give in to this emotion, to display this emotion. You've come along with me the last 4 episodes and this one. By now, you know that you can choose to either be in that emotion or to put it on hold and take on a different emotion and feel it. So that's just to give you an example. So how many times have you experienced this? Share with us in the chat. I'm thinking of one right now, a time when you're so tickled pink at an idea. You want to die laughing with this idea, but you're in a serious atmosphere. You're where people are discussing serious things. You can't start laughing. They'll think you're rude. They'll think maybe you're crazy. So you just think of a time when you were so tickled pink at an idea or a response in this serious meeting. Maybe somebody said something and the way they said it reminded you of a past experience that was just too funny and you're dying to laugh. Is it the right place for you to execute the laughter? Is it the right place for you? I would say, no, it's not the right place. You have to choose another emotion in that moment to cover it up, to kill it, to muffle it out. So what you need there is now a serious emotion. You need to be able to plug back into what is being discussed. This particular example reminds me of when I used to discipline my children when they were much younger. And as I'm disciplining my child and I'm asking them, why did you do this? And I really am angry at this point, perhaps. So I've got this serious mummy look and I want to get to the bottom of this. And the excuse or the reason that this child gives you, you just want to fall on the floor and laugh. But then if you do that, you don't carry out the objective of you being the disciplinarian. So you've got to be serious and you've got to ask one question after the other. And then you've got to mete out the punishment. And when you are done, at least when I was done, I would enter the next room and I would just crack up. Because yes, I have done what I needed to do as a parent. I've done a bit of correction. I have done my discipline, but I'm dying to laugh. So this is an example of you going through one emotion, but choosing to display a different emotion. And I'm not seeing anything moving here on the chat. So I'll give you another example, perhaps, so that you can understand it better. So think of a time when you feel, or that you felt, or that you are really sad. You are feeling so sad, whether you're feeling rejected, you're feeling dejected, whatever it is, you have feelings of sadness and they're taking over your whole being. And this sadness can be felt in your words, in the way you're walking, in the way that you carry yourself. But when you show up where there are people, you choose to smile. So what have you done? You have chosen to muffle the sadness. You still have it way deep down in you, but you choose to smile. This is you taking back control of emotions, because where you are, people needed you at that point to smile. Somebody needed you to support them in an idea, and therefore you're smiling at them and you're nodding. But really inside, you're breaking up because you're sad. You may ask me, am I being authentic? Maybe in this way, I am not being truthful. I am cheating, I'm not speaking the truth. I say to you that you are exercising emotional intelligence in that instant. Because in that instant, emotional intelligence is demanding that it is the ability to identify and manage your emotions and the emotions of others. Others at that point need you, and therefore you are choosing to step up. Nancy, thank you so much. You say when we feel lazy, but we know we have goals to attend. Very true. Thank you, Nancy. So you're feeling very lazy. And in this laziness, it's stopping you, it's paralyzing you from moving forward. And you're registering that this emotion, this feeling of laziness is not the one I should have at this point. So you choose to pick another one of industriousness. And then you push with the industriousness. And what happens in the long run is that industriousness will take over the laziness. Thank you so much. Maria, you say, welcome, Sunita. Maria, you say, but you show up despite the emotion. You show up despite the emotion. Very important. We need to show up despite the emotion, but the choice is yours. How important is it for you to show up despite the emotion? No one can make you do this. It comes from internal. So self-empathy, self-awareness, self-motivation, these are things that we need to be aware of. Nancy says, when we feel angry, but we need to exercise restraint. Very true. When you need to exercise restraint, I think of the times when I get so annoyed at a situation, but I choose to be calm. And like Nancy says, you choose restraint. This is you choosing, because this is emotional intelligence. This is you influencing effectively through social skills, because you're not alone. You're not an island. There are people around you. you have an objective for the day. Perhaps your objective for the day today was to connect with people, but then you meet somebody who has really annoyed you and you choose to be calm because you're not going to be labeled as that angry person, that angry individual. So emotional intelligence is about you understanding your own emotions and those of others and knowing what you want to align in that moment. Being cognizant of the fact that you have emotions going about you the entire time. Maria and Jerry, you say, more time than often, when I feel like crying, but I need to be strong for others around. Very true. Yet when you're around in your bedroom, when you're around in a closeted place, you may just allow these emotions to flow because they are healthy for you. Maybe in these situations, Maria and Jerry, you may need to cry because at times people need to see your vulnerability, to see your strength, so that you can give them the strength. But then there are moments like this one where those tears just dry up immediately because the people around you are looking for the strong Maria at this point. Thank you so much for sharing. The question today is, how well do you connect with strangers? Welcome, Kavi. Good to have you here. So we've given you examples and you've shared examples of times when you've taken back control. You're feeling one emotion, but you're choosing to feel another one in that moment. This is something that we call connecting, just connecting. So as we are connecting and interacting with others, we share our emotions, or we actually wear our emotions on our sleeve. This can happen very naturally. And in so doing, we seek to understand through listening, through paying attention to where each one is coming from. All the time, while we are being cognizant of ourselves, because we are also experiencing emotions. Now, in the last episode, we touched on intentionally understanding that we all have our own journeys and stories. My journey, my story is different from your journey. Your story is different from the other person's journey and stories. And we are building up on our stories as life goes on. Our journeys continue until we draw our last breath. So we need to understand, where is everybody coming from? We need to seek to understand where somebody is coming from. We need to seek to console and not to be consoled. This is what emotional intelligence is about. We want to appreciate that not everyone thinks like we do. I remember I gave an example of, we don't want to copy and paste or expect that you would copy and paste your experiences on somebody else. Those are learnings. But doesn't mean that because you went through it and you impose it on me, I should take it on. We want to have empathy. I mean, here there's so many emotions. I say emotions galore. So many emotions when we're trying to understand through listening, paying attention. We're trying to understand that we all have our own journeys and stories. Maybe I need to get something off my chest. I need to share something. And in appreciating that we are not all the same, I feel like somebody is just holding me back. Now, this is emotions. Fun fact, if one was to capture that kind of description of an environment, if they were to capture it as an image, this is my imagination, we would all be walking around with these emotional bubbles over our head the entire day. And imagine if each emotion was represented through color, by a specific color. Can you imagine in the world, we would be walking around with emotional bubbles over our heads, changing colors throughout the day. As the day progressed, we would be changing colors, or rather those emotional bubbles would be changing colors. I mean, for a moment, just imagine that. I say it's a fun fact. This is me just having fun here. Wouldn't it be beneficial to know what your emotions are? Wouldn't it be nice to know that on top of my head, or maybe something I'm wearing on my hand, is showing me the emotions that I'm going through, and as one checks out, another one checks in? Okay, that's just on a fun moment, having fun. Or wouldn't you like to have a heads up on people's emotions? You know, before you meet a stranger or somebody that you already know, wouldn't you want to have a heads up of what kind of emotions they're experiencing in that instance, so that you can meet them at their emotional point? Wouldn't life be easier? Well, this pictorial presentation could be like an app. Yeah, think about an app. And this app would make a killing in the market. I imagine that it would. I would love to have an app like this so that I could gauge somebody's emotions and gauge my emotions. We would get things done faster, I think. But as human beings, we'd always find a way to turn this into something ugly. Maria and Jerry is laughing with me. Thank you so much for catching my joke, Maria and Jerry. You say that would be interesting. I know. Can you imagine an app like that one? So let us continue considering these optics of this app or these bubbles, emotional bubbles. How do you think these emotional bubbles would be? I'm imagining that they would be very thick-skinned, because at times we label ourselves or we label others by their emotions. We say, who are you talking, that angry person? Oh, that angry one, the one who works here or who passes here or who owns this business or, you know, who's on the phone at this time, or the one who answers. Oh, the one I like to give an example about is there's certain doctors you call and the receptionists are so rude. And I think there must be an emotional bubble there. But because they're so rude over such a long period of time, the skin thickens around this emotional bubble. And you'd ask them, why? Why are you so rude? They have no clue that they're rude. What it is that there's been internal issues that they've experienced over a period of time. They've never brought them to the fore and had closure on them or sought some solution. And so now it has become a thick skin. Number one, they don't know about it. And if they are aware of it, you know, they're very protective of this emotional bubble. Nancy says, I would love to have a heads up when I meet other people. Yes, Nancy, I would really love it. Just have a heads up and imagine what's going on in their head right now. What kind of emotion are they experiencing, so that I know where to meet them or not to meet them. I can decide to give a hard left, like my daughter says, a hard left when I'm approaching this person. So thick skins around our emotional bubbles are something to expect. I am asking you here and now, which one do you have that is thick-skinned? Which emotional bubble do you have that is thick-skinned? And why do you think it is thick-skinned? Because I know that if I came to you right now and I popped that bubble, oh, I'll be in trouble. Whatever bubble it is, I would be in trouble. If I popped your bubble of happiness, maybe you've created this thick skin around happiness because of your past experiences. And you've chosen to be happy the entire time, despite what is happening in your life. And it has formed a thick skin because it is in defense mechanism. If I tell you, snap out of it, we don't need to be happy in this situation, and I pop it, what I've just done is exposed you and made you vulnerable. Vulnerable back to that fear that you had originally. The fear that things would go wrong, that you would be sad. The fear that perhaps you would not be accepted. That's why you picked up this emotion of happiness and you are dying with this happiness. You say, this is what I'm going to do. This is a coping mechanism. So we shouldn't go around saying to people, snap out of it. We need to first understand where somebody is coming from. Understand why they have this emotional bubble over their head and why it is thick. So what about you? Why do you have this thick-skinned emotional bubble? What has happened in the past that has made it thick-skinned? Maybe you're somebody who's carrying this emotional bubble of pessimism. Every time something is said to you, you are pessimistic about it. You don't see the hope, the light at the end of the tunnel. You will always kill somebody's story. You're always the wet blanket. Again, it is an internal issue that you have experienced, which is emotional based. So what we want to do is help somebody to get out of their current bubble gently, or to lessen that thick skin around their current bubble gently, to create a new bubble. Because in so doing, this is how we influence effectively. When you are meeting people, you don't want to impose your ideas on them. You want to influence them effectively. and emotional bubbles are our emotional intelligence. So what one action will you do intentionally today or tomorrow or this week to influence effectively? Think of those emotional bubbles. Think of that funny thing that anybody who is around you has got these bubbles over their head. Try and understand where this person is coming from before you give them ideas of how they can move on from where they are. Our question is, how well do you connect with strangers? Maybe that is one place that may be hard to start with. You want to start with a loved one. Or maybe it's easier for you to start with a stranger. The decision is yours. That is a tool that I would like you to use, the emotional bubble tool. Then there's the power of confiding. We have been looking at understanding and connecting with others and listening and paying attention. We are connecting with others. However, connecting is a two-way process. So if we are going to connect with people, we need to turn the spotlight on us. It's a two-way process. For instance, if you were to plug in into an electric connection, it doesn't complete the circuit, unless you plug one end into another. Otherwise, when you have the two components separately, there's no connection. So we want to connect you, me, to the other people. Yes, we want to understand and connect with them and see what they feel. But they need to also know how we feel. And this is where the power of confiding comes in. However, we are guarded. Most of the time, we are guarded and we don't want to share what we are feeling. Why? We ask ourselves, why? We are a sum of our past experiences. Is it what makes us so guarded? Is it our limiting beliefs, perhaps? Is it what we were told by our parents not to trust strangers, or by our guardians not to trust strangers? Is that what it is? Is that what is stopping us from from speaking out and just being guarded? We are protecting ourselves. Well, there is a power in confiding, and I'm not talking about bearing your soul, like telling them everything, coming and spilling. I mean, I would be so scared if somebody came to me and suddenly started telling me their most intimate of secrets and their most intimate of fears. Hey, we are strangers. We don't know each other like that. I would feel very nervous if somebody started speaking to me in that way and sharing with me in that way. There's a protocol, how we break down to knowing somebody and sharing and confiding. So why don't we start with you? And some simple steps is we need to allow people to understand us, what and who we are, to open up and be vulnerable and so on. How can we do that? We can share who we are, what we do, what we love doing. We can share who is in our lives and how they impact us positively or negatively. We can relate and connect to what is happening in the environment and open up and be vulnerable and say things like, I get nervous when there's lightning, when it's raining and then there's this thunder and lightning. I get really nervous. How about you? You're already opening up a conversation by you starting off with confiding a little bit of information. Now, this is important if we want to build relationships and influence effectively through social skills. As a trainer and a facilitator, I find that when I give my own personal experiences, people begin to open up. So I do give my real experiences because people can tell if you're not being authentic. So I share my experiences. I confide my experience. I mean, like the experience that I gave when I was disciplining my children. This is true story. And my children now know because I share with them as adults. I watch them disciplining younger people. And I asked, so did you feel like laughing? And they're like, yes, how did you know? And then a conversation starts there. I say the same thing that used to happen to you. I would discipline you and I would listen to your excuses and the reasons that you're giving me. And I'd look at how your little face would try and convince me why you should not be punished at this point. And I'm dying to laugh inside, but I know I have to finish what I have started. I go into the next room and I crack up. Or I would go into the next room where the father was and I'd share with the father of my children and I'd say, do you know what just happened in the other room? But now I can share with my children who are adults. Now, this is me authentically sharing with you. I'm confiding. And so I'm influencing effectively. You are able to believe my story. You're able to relate with my story. This is social skills. So we can influence effectively through social skills. Now, you might be so guarded in sharing your story, but how about on social media? Have you looked at social media and wondered how people can share so much about themselves on social media? And how much should you share on social media? It's a deep question. It's a very deep question. What I have decided that the reason why people share so much on social media, I mean, not everybody does, but those who open up and bare their souls, things that really should not be shared in public, this is because they cannot see the other person. There's the power in the eyes. When you're looking at someone and relating with someone face to face, it can get very disarming to share with them your personal secrets, to share with them those things that you hold so dear, to share with them something that you've never shared with anybody else. So how much should we share? The decision is yours, and you need to know why you're sharing what you're sharing. But there's a power in confiding. I would say confide in moderation. Because again, you don't want to scare the other person because they're wondering, why is this person confiding this much in me? You find that at times you scare people so much that they think that you're about to take your last breath. That is why you're telling them these things. You're not doing what you set out to do, which was connecting. You're scaring this person. So opening up your life story, your book. Remember, we're talking about your journeys and your stories, and they're busy growing. Just opening up your book to move from recognizing what is happening before you to going to connecting and hopefully compassionate empathy is one thing that we can be able to move in areas of confiding, in that we intellectually recognize what is happening in the room. We are reading the room. And then we are connecting with the room. And then we are stepping outside our comfort zone, putting everything together and doing something about it. Connecting your emotions in the right way at the right time is very critical in building relationships. So you need to connect cognitively, that's in your intellectual, you need to connect emotionally, and you need to connect compassionately. Help one another to survive. As you're speaking to somebody else and you're connecting, you could be the one person right now who is giving this person hope, the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe they were having feelings of doom, but in meeting you and discussing, they were able to walk out of that environment, that space, a better person, someone who is lifted up. That is emotional intelligence on your part. So I'm just looking at the chat. And I want to remind you that the question today is, how well do you connect with strangers? And I do hope that you can share with us. So let's talk about building rapport. When connecting with people, you may find them in a negative bubble. You know, if you walked up to somebody and they had this negative bubble over their head, you would know. And therefore you would adjust yourself and your emotional intelligence would kick in. And you would be empathetic. And perhaps you take a moment and recognize what this person is going through. The minute you recognize what I'm going through, you begin to let the air out of that emotion. And I begin to become more understanding, more receptive of you, so to speak. We want to make it emotional and meaningful while we are building this rapport. So if you are able to see what somebody is going through, your first instinct should be to let out that emotion if it is a negative bubble. If it is a positive bubble, you want to be able to register it and pick it from where it is. Some people are very high strung and maybe it's not something you want to be hanging around. Maybe you don't like to hang around people who are so energetic, they drain you. But then again, when we are building rapport, we want to be able to make a connection. Therefore, our cognizant is that it's more towards understanding where this person is coming from and calling it. Maybe saying, "You're happy today." Do you want to talk about it? You're happy today. What happened? I would love to be part of your excitement. Share. And you're building a rapport and a conversation. It's very interesting on this connection and negative bubbles. Yesterday, as I was preparing for this, I came across the Oscars 2022, where Chris Rock was actually moderating, or shall we call moderating, or he was the person who was calling out the winners. And apparently he told a joke that Will Smith found was not a good joke. And Will Smith stepped up. We all know Will Smith. I hope these are actors. These are actors in Hollywood. So Chris Rock is an actor, and so is Will Smith. So Will Smith apparently, and this is true story, you can look it up. Will Smith stepped up onto the stage and he slapped Chris Rock. This was Will Smith's reaction to the joke that Chris Rock told, and you must watch this clip and the joke that he told. So this was Will Smith, who most probably was in a negative bubble. Something must have happened prior to this to prime Will Smith to be in this kind of mood or this emotion. For him, at such an event, to stand up onto the stage and slap the MC, the moderator, something was happening with Will Smith, and this was his reaction. There is a negative bubble for you. Now, Tyler Perry, who is also an actor and producer, and Denzel Washington, actor and producer. Man, I'm dropping names today. These two gentlemen, they sought out Will Smith later and had a conversation with him and calmed him down. I don't know what happened to Chris Rock, if he had men who were able to support him or people who were able to support him. The fact that I am trying to draw here, the focus I'm bringing on is a negative bubble that Will Smith must have been experiencing. And we experience this a lot. We enter an event happy and smiling, and we are taking part in this event. Everything is going happy-go-lucky, and the emotions are running high in a positive way, but something changes. Remember those emotional bubbles? Something changes, guys, and it changes the whole mood. And then somebody says something that is not aligned to what I'm thinking. I step up on the stage and I slap someone. Look at the ramifications of negative bubbles. Now, did Will Smith have an opportunity at this point before he stepped up on stage to slap Chris Rock? Maybe he did. Maybe he needs to come to Tuesday Talks at 3 and listen to our take on emotional intelligence, where he needs to take back control. In that instance, he never took back control, but that is an example of negative bubbles and how one celebrity reacted. Maria says, however, once you give to someone else and you are left feeling taken or drained, how can you go about that? You are in control of your feelings, Maria Jerry. That's a perfect question. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. You are in control of your feelings. The minute that you hand over control to somebody else, and in this example, Will Smith handed over his control to Chris Rock in his action of slapping him. Will Smith needed to step back and take control. And in taking control, he should have chosen which emotion to use in that instant. So maybe he was annoyed by the utterances of Chris Rock. He could have chosen at that point, like Nancy says, to exercise restraint or to be calm. To be calm. He did not choose that. For whatever reason, he stepped up and he slapped Chris Rock. Maria and Jerry, Will Smith gave up his control to Chris Rock. How does he take back this control in the future? He could either go back and apologize to Chris Rock, or he could decide moving forward that any time he feels his emotions coming up, he chooses which emotion to exercise in that moment. I hope that I have been able to answer your question, Maria. So choose your reactions to others. Very important. Literally handpick a reaction that can either help you connect or disconnect with others. In this case, he could have chosen to disconnect, but he ended up connecting literally with his hand across Chris Rock's face. Now, why would you need to disconnect with others? Maybe their values, their beliefs are not aligned to yours anymore. They were at a certain time and you've grown. Because as we grow in life, and we go through different experiences, so do our values and beliefs. They kind of evolve. They may still have the same foundation, but they evolve. Then you find that somebody no longer, I mean, their values and beliefs are not aligned with yours. So you choose to disconnect. Maybe their habits, and you choose to disconnect. It is healthy to disconnect. This is emotional intelligence. And this way you have the opportunity to influence effectively through social skills. So disconnecting, knowing that thing that does not add value in your life is important. So in building rapport, we can be able to evolve in a different way, that we would be accepting people on different levels or not. Therefore disconnecting. So 3 tips on how to build a rapport to influence effectively. The first one is to intentionally seek out to build a rapport, like we were saying. The other one is to use somebody's perspective. And the third one is to increase diversity of connection. Nancy says, we connect with others in an easier manner by showing ourselves simple and honest. Very true, Nancy. By showing ourselves simple and honest. And since we have already practiced self-empathy, we know which emotions we can apply when. So the example that we gave in episode 1 and 2, where you wake up feeling one way and you make a conscious decision to change that way and feel another way, is you taking control. So as we show up as ourselves, we know that today I am not going to be that angry person. Today I choose joy, and choosing joy means I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much for sharing, Nancy. Let's keep sharing. Let's keep sharing on the group. So intentionally seeking to build a rapport. In my Lady in Waiting series, where I help teenage girls gracefully transition into society, I take them through the intentionally seeking to build rapport. And this is around having conversations, dinner conversations. It's important when you're building rapport that you have an objective, a foundation of the kind of conversations that you want to have. When you're walking into a scenario like this, have at the back of your mind 1 or 2 things that you want to talk about that are general information. So you want to offer interest to a certain topic, ask questions and dig deeper into a conversation. You want to offer appreciation to somebody when they have said something for the shared information. You're building a rapport. Whatever topic it is, we can always build up on a topic. You know, when somebody says, let's talk about the weather, they're being very general. This is a general example, but there's so many things you can talk about the weather, and it can take a whole conversation. For instance, I could start by saying that perhaps I feel anxious when, like I said earlier on, there's thunder and lightning. And already in your response, you could say, why is that? And then we have conversations. It could go as far back as my childhood. It could go to something where a house caught fire because of an electrical fault and the thunder and lightning happened. It could be about an earth rod when somebody is building a house. Whatever it is, this conversation can really become far and wide. So intentionally seeking to build a rapport. In the next one, the next tip was about using somebody's perspective or using others' perspective. It's so powerful to make somebody feel heard and relevant. In the same way that I ask you to share with me examples here on this thread, and then I share them, you already feel relevant. You feel heard. You feel seen. This is a need that is being met, a human need, so that you're not there and we can't see you. We are able to see you just by repeating your words, calling in and saying thank you so much. So when we seek somebody else's opinion to reach a decision, we are making them involved. There's inclusivity. If you're in this same place at an event and you're standing around a table with people and it's time to sit down to dinner, don't just decide that we're going to sit at that table. Seek other people's opinion and say, what do you think, guys? Would you like us to sit by the window? Where would you like to sit? And then everybody gives their idea. And very slowly, as you're beginning to move forward, you will find that we will all move towards a table as we are discussing where we want to sit. And somehow everything falls into place when we find a table. And when you find that table, you start to see where people will sit. People begin to place themselves. So people have felt heard and relevant, and so have you. The third one is increasing the diversity of connection. You need to try and connect with people who are not like you. It's a very normal thing to connect with people who are only like you. But there's a danger in that. You do not grow. Somebody said to me once that if I find that I am the smartest person in the group, it's time for me to leave, because then there's no more growth. So you want to try and connect with people who are not like you, people who are different from you. And you will argue with me correctly that you may not like the people who are different from you. So I say to you, that connection may not get far. However, in trying, you have given yourself the opportunity to build relationships, the opportunity to grow. You now know which emotion you are applying. As you began to feel disconnected to this person, you now chose a different kind of emotion to apply. It's up to you. But when you see the connection of your emotions, you can use it in building rapport. So those are the 3 tips on how to build rapport. As we come to the end of our session, we want you to be able to understand your emotions and what it is and how they play a part in influencing effectively with social skills. And that was the question today. How do we connect with strangers? So connecting with people, we need to find a connection of understanding. This is you seeking to understand somebody, as opposed to you going in and wanting people to understand you. Then it's about you. But when you start, if all of us in a group began to seek a connection to understand one another, look at this effect. It's a domino effect. All of us will start speaking to one another about one another and not about self. And already there's a powerful connection. We begin to learn about one another. The second takeaway is be aware of emotional bubbles. Yes, we don't have that app yet, so we're not going to see those emotional bubbles on top of somebody's head or on our arm or somewhere to give us a tip of what emotion we're about to experience. But we want to be aware of emotional bubbles because body language speaks a lot. And emotional bubbles, by asking the right questions, we get to know where somebody is coming from. We don't want to burst emotional bubbles. We want to be able to understand what they are and maybe help in making that wall around it less thick by understanding where this person is coming from, because we have different stories and different journeys that we have traveled. And then last but not least, intentionally building a rapport, where I gave you 3 tips on how to build rapport. And we come to the end now. I don't see any other comments. I want to thank you so much for your interaction today. I have really loved this last session of EQ and Me series. So empathy and social skills are social intelligence. This is what Daniel Goleman says. He goes on to say the interpersonal part of emotional intelligence. That is what social intelligence is. And that is why they look alike. You can see I was interchanging empathy and social skills. They look alike. And Daniel Goleman recognizes that it is the interpersonal part of emotional intelligence. And like we said right at the beginning, and we defined emotional intelligence as the ability to identify and manage your emotions and the emotions of others. And I'm just hoping that the 5 Tuesdays that we have gone through, including today, and the 5 emotional intelligence tools that I've shared with you have given you a greater understanding of the importance of EQ in our lives. And hopefully you will apply the learnings that we have sampled together in the various areas of self-awareness, self-regulation and management, self-motivation, empathy, and social skills. I can see that there is a comment here. Maria, you say thank you so very much. This was quite insightful. You are most welcome. Kavi says, thank you so much. You're most welcome, guys. I'm saying thank you to you. You have been with me for all the 5 episodes. You have made it worth my while. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, LMC Consultancy, for the full EQ and Me series, and share with us on Instagram and Facebook what you thought of these series and make a comment there. Come back to us, share with others. Well, that's it for the EQ and Me series. April is upon us. Now, April is a stress awareness month. This is a topic that is very dear to my heart because I have experienced stress on different levels. And I would love to share with you my takeaways. We will be on Instagram for the next episode and the next series. The series will be called the Stress Situation Series. And I will be hosting Patsy Litunya. Patsy Litunya is a certified counselor and HR practitioner. You do not want to miss this. We will be on Instagram for the next 4 episodes. And I'd like you to visit our LMC consultancy for more of our services as I continue to post it there for you to have a look at. Now, here is the good news. My book is finally here. I finally got the copy, and there you see it. That is my book right there. I'm holding a hard copy. You are the first people online to see me hold my hard copy of this book. It is available on Amazon, and it is available in paperback and in Kindle. I will give you a tip. It took long for these books to get to me, simply and purely because with Amazon, you need to have a local agent. So find who your local agent will be for you to order your own copy on Amazon of my book, which is The Awakening Self. You want to watch out for our series because I'm going to be giving you a free book to one person in the next month of April. April is my birthday month. And so I will be feeling very generous as I give away one of these books, which is Awakening Self. I'm giving myself a pat on the back because I had a lot of doubts when it came to the publishing of this book. This book is many stories put together. There are 12 other authors in this book. So you will read my part of the story and read the part of the story of the other people who are 12. It's a great read, and I encourage you to make your order. If you do not want to do the paperback, you just want to download the Kindle app and then order the Kindle app on Amazon, and you can be able to read the stories. They are self-help stories. We call it the Wealth Footprints Volume 1, and there are many other volumes coming up. Let us help build one another, and I hope you will help to build me this time around by buying my book, getting a copy for yourself, and sharing whatever feedback that you have. Thank you so much. I can see the congratulations coming through. Nancy says you cannot wait. Sunita, you're watching. Thank you so much, guys. Let us help to build one another. And until then, when you get your copy of my book, until then, when we meet on IG for the April Stress series, I want to say, be kind to yourselves. Bye-bye now.